International Street Preacher, here with reporter, I guess, to talk about life stories in East St. Louis and probably some around the country that I have experienced. Um, Born in Earl, Arkansas, 1948, baby boy, belongs to Lewis and Beldora Combs. I um I was born in St. Francis Hospital. At that time, blacks wasn't welcome in the hospital. Some complications, some I don't know, happened. Um, so I and from that all the way around, all over the country, um, had a rocky teenager hood. You know, Probably because I left home when I was about 9. Ran off from home, got tired of picking and chopping cotton inside to make my own life. Um, and so wandering around, man, seemed like trouble followed me everywhere I went. I remember the first night I had left home. I was in Memphis, Tennessee. Back in them days, they used to leave the keys in the car all night and all day. Stole a car, a Corvette, and wrecked it. Ended up in the uh, jail in the jail in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm telling you, it's just been one roller coaster after another. Then after that, I found myself in a lot of trouble, doing a lot of things. Uh, but even at that, God had His hands on me. He wanted me to do something spectacular. I find myself uh, from stayed in Chicago. Chicago wasn't my cup of tea. I stayed in trouble in Chicago, so I moved back to East St. Louis, Illinois, where my parents had migrated from Arkansas to East St. Louis, and that's where most of my family at now, between Chicago and East St. Louis, and so uh, I mean, um,
What was you into in East St. Louis?
I was in East St. Louis. I was into politics and politrics and all the other things. Find myself uh, getting off into the drug culture world. They accused me of selling drugs, being a drug kingpin. Never was a drug kingpin. Never sold drugs. Financed a lot of drugs. Financed them, but when people's at you, they'll use any means necessary to get you. So it was a lot of lies told, a lot of paying off informers and stuff like that. They accused me of a lot of stuff. End up uh, getting 35 to life in federal prison. Did about 20 between 22 to 26 years in prison. Um, uh, uh, got out from that and went back to Chicago, and also after I got out of prison, I was sent to a halfway house in Michigan because Chicago didn't have any halfway houses room, and so I was in Michigan, stayed there, um, and worked with my nephew in his church, and on some of his social programs, and made my way back to East St. Louis after getting off parole and stuff, I made it back to East St. Louis because the stipulation of my parole, I could never come back to East St. Louis. But hey, I'm here. Community preacher doing his thing, and that's why it's so hard for me to watch what they're doing to the city of East St. Louis. You know, and that's why I find myself in battlement with most of the city officials in this city because I don't like their programs. I don't like what they're doing.
How did you get into preaching, and what prompted the street preacher name?
Well, preaching, I've been preaching since I was 17.
Who introduced you to preaching?
Reverend Ellis Hull in Benton Harbor, Michigan. As you know, I stayed there when I left East St. Louis. The first time I went to Benton Harbor, Michigan. Stayed in Benton Harbor, Michigan, St. Joe, Michigan, and that's where I was ordained. That's where I preached my first sermon, but I wasn't ordained. I was just going through the program,
What made you stick with it?
It had to have been God. Preaching, it was God because, man, listen, there was so many times, so much going on, and that clouded my judgment. But God was always there to straighten the way and give me the direction that I needed to move forward and to move in the right direction.
Who gave you the name street preacher?
The street preacher. Carl Officer gave me that. Listen, let me tell you about that. They was having an election. Clyde Jordan was running. Clyde Jordan was township supervisor. Carl was mayor, and I guess he was running for another term. And so Clyde decided he wanted to be township supervisor and mayor. So he ran against Carl, and what he did was he had a radio show, and he would get on his show and talk about the mayor and all, I mean just low rated, degrade him and all that stuff.
Smear campaign.
Yeah. So one night me and Carl was riding and talking, and I told him, I said, you know what? We was listening to Clyde talking. I said, let's go to WESL. So we went to WESL, and a brother ran the station in WESL named Dave Brown. Dave Brown was a friend of mine, and so really then he wasn't a friend of mine. He was just a station manager. So I went in and then we talked about it, a community show that would combat some of the stuff that Clyde was talking about. And so I signed up and got my time in for the show and all of that. And so Dave said the show has to have a name. And we were sitting there clicking our heads together trying to figure out a name for the show. Carl said, say Street Preacher. So we went from there to Street Preacher Rap. And so from that we moved forward, and matter of fact, the Jet magazine, it's in Jet magazine and Ebony magazine proclaimed that the Street Preacher was a force in getting Carl elected mayor. And so they took a picture of me and him raising hands, clapped hands and raising hands together. And about a year after that, I was in prison.
What year was this?
I don't, you know what, I have to get those dates for you. I have to get those dates for you.
And for the people who don't know, hey man, describe the political and city climate back then between a Clyde Jordan, because people forget about these names, and you're here to provide clarity on this history. Provide the clarity pertaining to a Clyde Jordan as opposed to a Carl. How strong of forces these two were in the city.
They was Clyde ran the township, and really he ran the city. He was one of the most powerful politicians in the state of Illinois, in southern Illinois. And so we had a fight on our hands. He had Belleville and all of that behind him. And but one thing he couldn't beat the officer's name, and he couldn't beat the street preacher on the air talking about his infidelity. See, what Clyde forgot was, if you live in a glass house, you shouldn't throw bricks. And we talked about and we talked about his check kiting, his check stealing from the citizens and all that stuff. And we had $60,000. Clyde had $180,000, and we beat him 2-1 in the polls because the people rose up and said enough is enough, and that's how we ended up being who we are and what we are.
How did being basically Carl's right-hand man, how did that empower you being so close to him?
It gave me credibility within the city. Cause see, let me tell you something. Carl is a credible guy. Carl was a good politician, and he was a good mayor. Now I know a lot of people say a lot of stuff about, but see, Carl brought a lot of programs into this city. He brought High East St. Louis team in here. He brought the riverboat. Carl brought the riverboat here. Bush got the credit because Carl was out of office when the boat came, but the boat all that stuff had already been signed and already been done. So all Bush did was got the gravy, and after that, all he did was sold the city out.
Okay, so what brought about your introduction into the underworld? What pulled you in that direction?
Well, I've always had a fascination with crime bosses. When I was young, I used to drive in Chicago for Sam DiStefano, one of the largest juice racket men in Chicago, and then I did some jail time with some of the main gangs. I forgot. It's been years now. That was up for not refusing to testify, contempt of court for refusing to testify before the grand jury and stuff like that. So I dabbled in that for a while, and then it got to be a part of my world. I'd always been in that world. They knew me as a driver, and then I started working in Chicago for the Phillips brothers, and I did the lottery. Back then the lottery was a quarter ticket, and they were and they then they roll the number and they pay off at night. Now the lottery is I guess they took over. They found out that quarters make dollars and dollars make hundreds of dollars. So that's when they got involved in the lottery. They thought the lottery was just nothing, but it made a lot of black men rich.
What about your tenure and your influence at Mount Zion Church? Can you speak on that?
Well, I was John Rouse. Pastor Rouse ordained me.
We don't want to gloss over that. Can you just give a brief description and history on Mr. Rouse before you proceed? And who he was to not only the religious world.
John Rouse was one of the most prolific preachers in America, and one of the most powerful preachers in America. He held an office at the National Baptist Convention, which has 33,000 churches and presidents. Rouse had served every president they had as director of the publishing board. He was the man that ran the publishing board, and then he also pastored the greatest church in East St. Louis, Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church, and that was a church I was a part of. I met Reverend Rouse accidentally. I just got in the city, and I met a guy that owned the Greyhound bus station, Cecil Johnson. Me and Cecil became friends, and Cecil invited me to his church, and introduced me to his pastor, and that's how I got it. That's how I ended up at Mount Zion.
What transpired during your relationship? How did you guys become what you became over the years?
Loyalty. He trusts about what I said. He knew I would do. He trusts me not to cross him, not to backbite him, and I trusted him because his word was bond. He works not only in the spiritual realm, but even in the natural realm. Reverend Rouse was a powerhouse. Governors trust him. Presidents trust him. And being the pastor of Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church, the man that everybody looked forward to in this city and work with, and work with. Preachers was not afraid to work with Reverend Rouse because Reverend Rouse would work with anybody. He didn't have no big eyes and little U's. Everybody was the same.
Would you say he had the first mega church before mega churches became popular?
Oh my God, yes. You had to have a police escort to get down bond because you could. But when Mount Zion was in service, the cars were parked everywhere, blocks and blocks away. When Mount Zion let out, the police had to escort the traffic so Mount Zion could move forward.
It was almost like a concert every Sunday.
Every Sunday.
Like a OJ's or Barcades or a Temptation concert every Sunday on Bond.
That's it. Yes, sir. It was a fantastic. Reverend Rouse took his church to Powell Symphony Hall. We brought in famous guys like the Williams Brothers. We went all over where we did it on Christmas. We did the Nutcracker Suite. Mount Zion was just a fantastic, fabulous. We had guys like Dello Thetford, minister of music, like Marge Olive, pianist, and preachers like we had some of the greatest preachers: Marvin Field, Zachary Lee, Kenneth Allman, Crook. We had Rory Stewart. We had preachers. We had some of the greatest preachers in America at Mount Zion. And then came along this neophyte, Leviston, and destroyed it all. You kind of fight a dead man because he's jealous of a dead man. How you fight a dead man?
What would you say was the secret to the success of Mount Zion as a church? Was it solely on Reverend Rouse, or what would you give the credit to?
The credit was on God. Reverend Rouse, we had a praying church. And also we had a community church. Mount Zion was the lighthouse that steered the ships and the lost soul into the church from the community. And you, I don't care who you talk to, I don't care how successful or how poor they are. There's somebody in that family from St. Louis. You can be in Chicago and talk about Mount Zion. Somebody have been there, been a member there, or somebody's family is a member there.
And getting into you, and were you leading a double life at this time, or how did that transition go? From the pulpit to the streets, or like how was that?
I try always to be truthful. I try to be transparent. Listen, I never hid the fact that I was a preacher, nor did I hide the fact that I was a gangster. You understand me? So I was a gangster preacher. Let me. Hello. Fine. How you doing? Okay. Oh, you about ready for your car? Yeah. I thought you were saying about a car. Oh, who's this? Oh, oh, how's everything going? I'm sorry. Huh? Yes, okay. You know what? I'm sorry. I just realized who you were. Uh, I'm doing the interview now. Can you call me back in about 45 minutes? Oh, you want me to call you back? Are you at work? Or you or where you at? Well, why don't you call me when you go to lunch? Okay, I've been looking for you. Okay, bye bye. All right, bye bye. Okay, I thought that was the cleanest call.
Balancing your life as a preacher and a gangster.
Yeah, I try. I never hurt anybody that wasn't trying to hurt me first. I always try to keep myself. Yeah. But then there came a point that that I had to leave the gangster part in the street, and I had to make a decision, and and I think God gave me time to do that, to make a decision.
Back then, man, it was more entrepreneurship and black-owned businesses. What business holdings did you have throughout the city that people may or may not know about that you had your hands in?
Well, I passed 15th Street, and I was co-owner of some car lots, and I made sure people have cars that couldn't afford them and had credit problems. I had feeding programs, and I had counseling programs, and just stuff like that. And I had inroads into governments that people was having problem need to, and I counsel kids and adults.
Did it ever become a problem, like hiding the money, like washing the money, or was that never a problem? Because did it ever become where it was too much?
I had too much money. I tried to put it in cars. I tried to put it in that it's so much. I had so much that and giving I gave a lot of it away. I give my friends $200,000-300,000, stuff like that. But that's the way it ended up. Because and then I stayed in some of the most exclusive hotels in America. I lived in the Forest Park in St. Louis. I had the whole top suite. My daughter had one suite, and I had the other one.
What year was this?
This was in about the '80s, early '80s, and early '80s and '70s, latter '70s, early '80s.
What was that feeling like, man, being kind of like a really strong figure in East
I
St.
was
Louis?
humbled. It humbled me. It humbled me.
Hey, man, I remember you having on a mink coat in the summertime, man. I
Yeah.
remember you with the most beautiful women that people had ever seen, driving you around and opening up your car doors, and everywhere you went you were greeted like a king and like a superstar in the city. It was, how was that getting that kind of attention, man?
Well, I always reciprocated. I never took it for granted that those people were servants. I always made them my friend. If they had a problem with a bill or with money or clothes or whatever, nobody that dealt with me ever can say that I didn't take care of the city. I took care of the whole city. You know, I paid more bills than Ameren and all them other folks. I fed more folks than any entity in the city.
But the fact that you kept that kind of quiet, people try to say, or people would paint the narrative that you only took from the city, you
Right.
never
That's
gave
that.
back.
Well, those are people that was jealous and hard hearted and politicians that was really stealing from the city.
Name some of your political, or describe some of your political battles that you went through in the city, man. Because basically, I remember you. I was very young, but I remember you as you were basically on the front line for like a Carl officer, a John Robb. You were in the trenches. You were in the streets. You were the one that was fighting the battles, like for real. Like you were always front line with it, and we
Yes.
always kind of saw that it was like, hey, you was out front.
Because I figured that that was my calling. That was my destiny, was to protect this city. And like now is the same. I feel that I have a destiny to protect this city, because this city is in worse condition than it's ever been in the history of East St. Louis.
Describe, I want you to give us a history lesson on the city of East St. Louis. Describe when you first came here as a young man, as opposed to how it's changed now over the years, the changes you've seen.
I've seen the changes I've seen is that back in the day this city used to thrive. We didn't have much, but we handled what we had sacredly, and it was dispersed to, and citizen was able to get something from the city. And the battles I had was trying to keep Charlie Powell from tearing down every brick house in the city
Why was he trying to tear down every brick
to
house?
sell the bricks. That's hustling. And but then back in them days, people had jobs. People like Tommy Dancy, or like Fogs, and like Calvin and all them. They had jobs. So if they leave politics, they could go back to their jobs. But these Negroes here don't have no job. They solely come to live off the city. That's all they care about. They living off the city. They burn the city gas for personal use. They burn, and then charge the city for this stuff. You know, there has to be some accountability. We got stores here now that's price gouging the citizen because there's no store, because we're a food desert. The city council is supposed to look after the citizens, but what they doing, all they doing is looking after their friends and their partners.
What would you say was the breakdown in the city as opposed to the black businesses? Because I can recall every corner it was a black business. Like, matter of fact, most businesses were black owned predominantly in the city of East
We
St.
didn't
Louis.
support our black businesses with resources, money, and city resources. We raised their taxes, fought against them, and all of that. And so people don't, the legitimate people went out of business, and all we ended up with is liquor stores and that. Hello. You need to come in. I'm doing the interview. All right. So and that's the gist of what was going on in this city. We forget and the citizens forget that those people that sit on them council seats work for them. But now all they're doing is working for themselves and working for Mike Collins and them other folks. It's time out for that. It's time out.
How did it come to we basically forced ourselves out of business and then we complain about it's no black businesses?
You want to cut it for a minute? Yes,
What would you say was the turning point in the city? Like, who was in office? Who do you think caused the city to go backwards as far as forward?
I don't think you can blame. I don't think you can blame any one person. I think it's a little on everybody. So cars bear some blame. Parks bear some blame. Mika bears some blame. Bush bears some blame. But some of them was blatantly, like Bush and them, they was blatantly disrespectful to the city. They get sold the city out, gave it away to them white folks in Belleville. See, some of them was more blatant than others, and some of their deeds is unredeemable. Yeah.
What, in your opinion, should be different in the city?
The city, these councilmen don't understand. The most important thing in this city is our seniors and our youth. And they care nothing. They have no program for our youth, and they don't care nothing about our seniors. They rely on Jackie Joyner to do what the city should do, and that's unacceptable. That's unacceptable.
Why do you think they rely on Jackie Joyner?
Because that's somebody else putting money. Somebody else is taking the responsibility to deal with our kids, and they don't have to. They can spend their time trying to enrich their friends and stuff.
Who do you think is thriving, or who do you think is benefiting most in the city now?
Mike Collins.
Why do you say
because that? Everything because his whole family damn near works at City Hall. He works in the park. He got the park district, and he just gave himself a $10,000 raise, which the park cannot afford. He is a parasite on this city.
How did he get so powerful?
He got powerful because the people won't stand up. The people haven't had enough downfalls yet. They haven't had enough people beating them across their heads with sticks and stuff. That's how he got that power.
He's been around a long time, man.
Yeah, his daddy used to do this stuff. Me and his dad are best friends. So I know his daddy. His daddy used to do the same thing. Now he done took it to another level, a whole new level.
So you would say first we need to get him out of there, or
no? I'm saying that he needs to understand that he has to give back to this city if he want to be the chairman that people need in this city. But they so busy holding Belleville and this nigga Lilroy. He's just as bad as Mike.
So you think they're not in touch with the people?
They're totally out of touch. That you when you have to pay people to do things for you, then you out of touch. People work for you because they love you, not because of that, not because of what you charge them.
So basically, the love of the city is kind of.
We don't have no love for the city. Only the old politicians that's still alive love this city.
What about the youth? Like, who's looking?
I got problem with the township. I got problem with the township. Ricky. I had a problem with Bobby when he was married. You know, it's out of control, totally out of control.
Where do you see the control being regained and order being
When the
restored?
people stand up and we stop recycling these names, the Powells, the Easterns, and all of that. And when the people stand up,
Do you think it's a popularity contest now?
yes, it is.
And do you think that they oppose anybody who's going to stand up?
Of course they do. They want to threaten them and all that stuff.
How do we get around that? Is the people need to come together? You saying?
Yes, the people's gonna have to. The people's gonna have to organize. The people's gonna have to stand up and be heard.
Because the city looks
The
nothing
city
like,
is-
it looks nothing like it used to, man. It's
They
crazy.
tearing the city down brick by brick, board by board, just so they can enrich their friends, not to beautify the city.
Burnt out houses, like vacant lots.
And they just push them down just to get paid, instead of trying to put together a viable rehab program.
So that brick selling business is a lucrative business. That's why you see so many brick houses being burned.
That Charlie Powell again, Charlie Powell, in that brick stealing stuff.
Wow. So what is your dog in the fight?
My dog in the fight is that the citizens of East St. Louis be taken care of, and that any politician and not for the citizens should resign or be in jail.
What has your transition been like since you came home from prison?
It's been a job.
What changes did you have to adapt to? Like when you came home, what was different for you?
Everything, the whole world was different. I had to reconnect with the world, but the people was there, and they made it easy for me. You see, and I'm not gonna be satisfied until this city is back in the hands of citizens and politicians that love the people.
What?
And not to misuse it. And we got too many folks working here that don't live in the city. Too many directors and that live that does not live in the city, but they taking money from the city. Back to the white communities and helping them communities thrive.
Would you say you had a lot of support coming home?
Oh my God, yes. Yes. That's the only way I could survive.
Did a lot of the people that you helped over the years when you were in
Oh,
prison?
hell no. Hell no. They ain't did nothing for me. What I did, if it wasn't for God, I'd have been in trouble.
Were you surprised?
No, I wasn't. I wasn't surprised. Because those was friends I bought. They wasn't friends but friends. They was friends I bought. And bought friends is the expiration date only lasts as long as your money lasts.
So, in closing, because this is the first of many, but in closing, what would you like to say in closing to the people of the city or to anyone?
Let me say this to the citizens of this city. We need to stand up and tell these Negroes that, hey, we ain't gonna take it no more. Your kids went to school to and got an education, and you got Negroes with high school diplomas, and you got Negroes that convicts telling them what to do. Something wrong with that picture. We got to stand up and take our city back. God bless you and God keep you. I'm the community street preacher, and that's my rap.
Thank you.